to their number one blue line performer, Brad Park. Now it's Savard, belted by Redmond.
Here's Savard getting a real good hip check, Lou, from Dick Redmond.
And it's a good thing he did, because it was open along that right side, and he could have fired a pass across. But as we see Savard, we have to remember one thing why Cherry's so upset. They were very concerned about the officiating tonight. They felt the first 4 games were officiated very well. The people were allowed to play, sticks were kept down. It was aggressive hockey, clean hockey, no penalties, and they felt that this was a good advantage for the Bruins.
Pass too high, too hard for Gainey, and it is six.
Scoring highlights from the Rangers-Islanders game from Long Island. Here's the reason you saw Lambert in the penalty box a moment ago, an elbowing call.
Great agility there by Gilbert. Coming out while moving out, struck up that stick and deflected it. They jostled in the corner. Schutt and Rick Smith. Let's see. Now Blues playing right in front. O'Reilly back in over the line. Neatly got by Engblom. He's upended by Engblom. Napier starting down, left wing pass broken up by Wensing. Wensing ahead to O'Reilly. O'Reilly going in after it against Robinson. They struggle for it. O'Reilly still after it. Never gives up that number 24 for Boston. He's still after it along the boards. McNabb trying to help out. And Robinson finally comes up with it. Now McNabb is after him. There's a mix-up. Risebrough and O'Reilly. And we could have majors here. That was Risebrough, was it?
Yes, now we've got Milbury and I don't know who else. You know, and Lou, this is the, let's see, this is the 9th game between these teams this season, if you will, going back to when they first played on the 5th of November in Boston. This is the first incident of this kind in those 9 games. The history of the Canadiens and the Bruins certainly is not a quiet one. Danny can attest to that.
Well, tempers were running a little high all game long here, Dick, and I think maybe a little frustration set in. But that's 2 great competitors down there anyway, Risebrough and O'Reilly. And one thing nobody does better is the way they work the corners, the way O'Reilly works the corners. He was taking on 2 men there, and you know, after you work that hard and someone just gives you a little tug, that's enough to frustrate you. Terry O'Reilly working like a bull behind the net at all times there, first with Robinson, and then Risebrough came in there.
Live from the Forum in Montreal, the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, here we see Terry O'Reilly coming down and really going to work against Larry Robinson. Larry Robinson, one of the stronger defensemen in the league, fighting off O'Reilly. O'Reilly gets up, he fights with both Engblom and Robinson. And as we were saying before, after all this work, a little frustration is going to set in. When Risebrough comes here behind the net as the 3rd man and gives Terry a little shot, that was enough to get Terry frustrated. He was quite tired, working hard, and so we had the first major since the 5th game of last year's finals. Quite a deal.
You can't do that to an Irishman and expect to get away with it. 16 shots Montreal has had in this game. Robinson, another. Well, we sort of jinxed him, didn't we?
Well, he had another shot through traffic. We probably didn't see all of it.
Lambert trying to knife his way through there. On it at center. Tremblay tried to bump O'Reilly, and he got the worst of it. Tremblay did. Now Engblom. Here's Redmond coming in on that left side. Called on the offside. Engblom looking rather fistically as he glances toward O'Reilly.
O'Reilly just out of the penalty box after serving as major with Risebrough. This is just a great check right here.
Well, that's what got O'Reilly a little upset, and he hit Engblom inside the Montreal zone and didn't come out. He was just standing there talking to him, and that caused the offside.
Tremblay off Risebrough's skate. Doak is belted inside the line by Tremblay.
That goal came at 7:29 of the 2nd period at the Nassau Coliseum. The Rangers lead the Islanders 2-1, 3-0. Montreal over Boston here. They have played 6:10 of the 2nd period.
Lapointe firing it up on the right side. Sims over to Park. Now Lafleur knocks it down. Lafleur trying to set out. He was upended. There's going to be a penalty coming up against the Boston Bruins. And Cherry is beside himself. It'll be an interference call against Brad Park.
I think Brad Park was beside himself after the giveaway to Guy Lafleur. Cherry doing his thing in back of the net. Here's how the play began. Park is knocked down by Steve Shutt. Now at the right of your screen, there's Shutt being knocked down by Park. The call, interference.
And Cherry's blaming the crowd for calling it. That's why he's laughing and pointing to the crowd. He figured the referee, Ron Wicks, was a little slow in raising his hand.
Milbury ahead to Foster. He's jammed out of the play by Engblom. Robinson clearing it. Gilbert feeds it on the right side. Risebrough belted from behind by O'Reilly. Exactly 12 minutes left in regulation time. Canadians starting down on the right side. Tremblay got a stick from Brad Park. Tremblay got Brad Park's stick. Now, Lapointe, I think he was going after Jonathan.
They had major penalties late in the first period. They are going to get major penalties again here when this one is all over. Now, the linesmen are trying with one hand to keep somebody away from Jonathan. I guess that's Lapointe. And now Lambert grabs Brad Park, who was really the reason for the start of all this when he was involved with Tremblay, who was cut or nicked by Park's high stick. Well, this is too bad that this sort of a thing has to happen. Somebody got really cut in that O'Reilly-Risebrough confrontation. The first part of that one went to Risebrough, and then O'Reilly took over, and Risebrough, I believe, is the one who has been injured. Meanwhile, Lapointe wants to get at Jonathan, and linesman D'Amico has done a great job. I tell you, he has done just a great job to keep those two apart. Now he gets help from Ron Finn, who grabs Jonathan. Tremblay somehow has Dick Redmond's jersey off. And this is the scene here at the Montreal Forum with 11:52 remaining in regulation time. Tremblay's object of disaffection is Jonathan. You know, Lou, through that whole piece, Tremblay was upset. He was very fractious after Jonathan had hit him. Now, Scotty Bowman is trying to calm Tremblay down. He doesn't want to play shorthanded. There's still time to go, and
actually, Brad Park caught him with the stick first, but Jonathan and Tremblay had been going at each other all night long, and especially on that shift. So Jonathan then was maybe thinking that Tremblay was faking it somewhat. Now behind the bench, Milbury's
gone after a fan and jabbed his stick toward a spectator.
Well, there's a lot of stuff being thrown at Milbury and maybe Don Cherry, and so Mike's very upset down there.
Now we get some of the Bruin players who are not in uniform tonight coming down. You know, the thing that I don't like about this is that something like this being seen in Boston could create some very unnecessary scenes there when the teams go back on Tuesday. This is probably a tempest in a very small teapot, I would think. And the Bruins being upset with the way things are going. That gentleman in there doing the arguing is not a fan. He's a member of the Forum Security Department.
They're trying to have that fan thrown out that was apparently throwing some stuff at Milbury and Don Cherry. They're pointing at him, and they want him removed.
Well, if he was throwing anything, he should be thrown out.
As far as Don Cherry is concerned, that action behind the bench is not a tempest in a small teapot, but something is definitely brewing.
All right, now here goes. The fan is being escorted, and he's going to have his work cut out for him, trying to get by the Bruins. He takes the easy way out. This is how it all began. There is at the top right of your screen the incident with Park's stick and Tremblay.
Well, I think you were correct in saying John D'Amico and Ron Finn really kept that down quite a bit. John D'Amico, one of the stronger linesmen in the league, got good position on both Lapointe and on Jonathan, right in the center of the chest, kept them apart, and they couldn't get at each other.
Well, we seem to have settle things down both in the stands and on the ice. We'll take a break. This is Stanley Cup 79 from the Forum in Montreal.
Savard over to Robinson. Back to Savard. Goal! Tremblay rolled it down the line. I would think the two games in Boston had something to do with the substantial increase. Here's Mondu. Over it goes. He scores! Tremblay! Into the corner. It goes to Cashman. He tried to center it around the net. Gainey clearing it to the other side. He was sandwiched by Cashman and O'Reilly. O'Reilly leading a four-man attack. Cashman races up on that left wing. He goes to the corner trying to center it. Tried and knocked it away. Here's O'Reilly behind the net. O'Reilly to Cashman. They score! I think that went in on the short side.
Well, Cashman getting a setup from O'Reilly from behind the net.
And the Montreal Canadiens take a 3-2 lead in games in this series, which actually turned out to be a best-of-3 series going into tonight's game.